Things are finally happening in the NHL. How will it all impact the card market? We'll discuss all of that and more. This is episode 16 of the Hockey Card Haven podcast. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome. This is the Hockey Card Haven podcast with myself, Mike Distefano, alongside my co-host, Anthony Santini. We're here to dive deep into the world of hockey card collecting, flipping, and investing. What's going on, Anth? How you feeling on a Wednesday?
What's up, buddy? Feeling pretty good. Feeling good. Another step closer to the end of summer, closer to the school year. So I'm always fired up to get back on campus. But I know you want to get into it. There's a little bit of news coming out of the local team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Big news coming out.
There's a lot of news going down. I don't know what, like this past weekend, all of the NHL GMs seem to have gotten off of vacation, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, Boots and Hearts is behind us. It's time to now get ready to go and get ourselves ready for next season. Because yeah, we've got some big news coming in Toronto, which should be dropping. If you're listening to this later after Wednesday afternoon or something, you probably would already know. But sounds like Auston Matthews is about to be named the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the 26th captain in franchise history. We saw a couple offer sheets get tossed out there Tuesday morning as well. I think that could have some impact on the hobby, so we'll get into that. And there's a little bit of a trade as well. So a couple of things. Things are moving and shaking as we get to the midpoint of August. And, we're only, maybe 6 weeks away, 5-6 weeks away from training camp. So makes sense for things to really start to get going when it comes to the hockey. But it all has impact on the market, as we know. What happens on the ice, what happens in the NHL usually trickles into the hobby. So let's get into this Auston Matthews story. And before we even get to it from a hobby perspective, which is where we'll kind of do a deep dive a little bit, like you and I are both in Toronto. Like you grew up in the city. I cover the team for a living. I host a Locked On Leafs podcast. I used to host Leafs Lunch. Like I'm very entrenched with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I had no idea that this was coming. This news of them kind of stripping Tavares of the sea to give it to Auston Matthews for this upcoming season, I did not see happening. What was your initial thought when you kind of saw that report come out?
I mean, I was pretty surprised. You know me, I'm a big Matthews fan. So obviously I was fired up. I was eating dinner yesterday. I saw the message on my phone. Tweet comes out. And although I was surprised that it's happened so fast and so early, I mean, Tavares is still a member of the team come September, which is already surprising that he won't be wearing the C come October. But the biggest thing for me is that it was going to happen either way. I mean, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, I think it was going to happen either way.
Well, yes, like it's not a surprise that they're giving Auston Matthews the C. I think the surprise is that they're doing it while Tavares is still here. I think the expectation for most Leaf fans was Tavares' contract is over at the end of the season, and good chance he doesn't re-sign. But even if he does come back, there will be a change of captaincy at that point. I think next off season is when we expect to have this press conference. But to have it today is something that was the shocking part. It just came a little early. It's not that I didn't see it coming. And it's not 2, 3, 4. This was going to happen next year anyways. And they just decided, why not just rip the Band-Aid off? Like it, and kudos to Tavares. He clearly would have had to be part of it. He's going to be there Wednesday. He's going to be part of the ceremony, press conference, whatever you want to call it, where he's essentially giving the leadership to Auston Matthews. But this kind of tells me, like, just from a hockey perspective, from a Maple Leafs perspective, this is kind of like Brad Treliving and Craig Berube kind of establishing this is a new era of Maple Leafs hockey, and they're going forward with it with Matthews as the head guy. That's what this move tells me. They don't want to wait a full year. They want to start this season with Berube, a new coach. You've already had a year to kind of figure things out. How things operate in the room, on the ice, off the ice. If you're Brad Treliving, clearly he felt that there needed to be a shakeup of some kind. And they said, it's time for Matthews to kind of take the bull by the horns and become the guy for this team. It was a difficult decision, I'm sure, but I respect the move. I honestly do.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Although we didn't expect this to happen that fast. I feel like to have Matthews come into the room this year, and I mean, what's the main point of it all? Could it be to watch, maybe have Tavares have this upcoming season to watch and analyze what Matthews is like as a captain and maybe guide him along the way a couple weeks in and say, you know what, maybe you should have handled this situation differently. Maybe you should have done this differently. Maybe you shouldn't have said this. Maybe you should have
Mm,
after the game.
I don't
But
think it'll be like that. I think it to me, it's just symbolism. Like, it's honestly, I feel like it's just gonna be symbolism more than anything.
yeah, I mean, it could be that too, right? But how can you as Tavares, like, imagine Tavares coming into that room come October, game one. Sure, he might be wearing a letter. He could be wearing the assistant captain, but he's your old captain. You're not going to treat him like a captain compared to a guy that, obviously Matthews, one of the better players in the league, one of the better players on the team, no doubt, that was not a captain last year. I don't even know if he wore a letter last year for most
Yeah,
part of the season.
him and Marner alternate home and away wearing a letter. So Riley wears a letter every game. Tavares obviously was the C, and then Marner and Matthews alternate. One had it at home, one had it on the road.
It's definitely a tricky situation. Like, I don't see how a majority of these players will magically, just snap a finger and say, okay, this is our leader now. Let's go to battle with this guy. Let's follow that guy. When right across the room, John
I don't
Tavares
know.
is sitting there.
I don't know if I believe that though, because I think that ultimately Matthews has already been the leader. Like, Tavares wore a C, but like, this has been Matthews' team for 3 years now. Like anyone who says otherwise, I think is mistaken. Like, this has been Matthews' team already. It was just a formality that he was going to get the C put on his chest sooner rather than later. Like, most expected it to come next off season when Tavares' deal is up and probably doesn't return to Toronto. And that's just, that's the easy way to transition into the Matthews captaincy era. But I think this was just them saying, screw it. We know this is where it's heading. Why not just get ahead of it and make that move now? But it's been his team for a while. And it's not to say that people are going to treat Tavares any differently. I mean, you've been on many teams. Do you treat your captain or other teammates any differently? You really don't. Like, I think it's very much symbolism and what it means, like with the media and how you carry yourself within the organization, than it does realistically, like in the room.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, like you said too, right? Like, would you treat a teammate differently? Sure, you could if it was a team of, equals that captaincies are then announced. Yeah, you're going to treat one guy with a little bit more respect, and he's going to be, the symbolism of leadership amongst your team. But for a team that already had a captain for 6 years, it doesn't seem like Tavares is going to be traded or leave the Leafs this upcoming season. He's going to play out the year. It could be a little bit awkward, but for him to kind of lead the charge and pass the torch, as some would say, to Matthews, it could be the best thing that could happen for the Leafs. And maybe a new
Yeah.
sense of leadership could be the change that the Leafs need, because although the past 6 seasons have been above average in a sense in the regular season, come playoff time, it's pretty much just been a dumpster fire every year, back to back to back. So changes need to be done. And I feel like this is the first of, many to come.
Who was the one guy, though? Who's the one guy who put them through to the second round for the first time and only time in the last 20 years?
Oh
Was
man, I hate coming across those TikTok videos where it's I forget who the announcer is. I believe it was for Sportsnet. And he made the call, and it was like they finally caught lightning in a
they thought it
bottle.
was,
It's like,
yeah.
oh man, what a great call. That was just I remember I was in Cuba at the time. They won. We were going nuts. It was like us and 20 other Leafs fans from Canada just going nuts. One of the greatest hockey games I watch, and experiences I had watching hockey in recent memory. But man,
Yeah.
it sucks, but happy for Matthews.
I think this also, you could look at this also and say that it's a selfless move for John Tavares to do this. And, for the betterment of the team, I think he understood that it's what's best for the organization. So I think you also got to kind of tip your cap to Tavares. Probably a very humbling experience that he's having to go through this, having this captaincy stripped from him. He's a hometown kid from the Toronto area, the GTA area. So, you know, it sucks from that perspective, but I think the Leafs will be in good hands with Auston Matthews moving forward as the captain. And it's a new era, right? You got Berube, you got Tree Living, and they're giving the team to Auston Matthews now officially, symbolically, as he'll have the C moving forward. Now, This is the Hockey Card Haven podcast, so we got to put a little hockey card spin on things, and I think it's a worthwhile conversation because it's one that I think people have had in the past as a hypothetical, but now we can actually look at it in real time. Will this have an impact on his card values? Now that Auston Matthews is the captain of the Maple Leafs, do you think that makes it will we see a hobby bump here with this news?
Yeah, you can expect a slight hobby bump. I wouldn't see too much right now, at least until the season starts. I was looking on eBay and I even saw a couple extra sales more than normal in the past, 24 hours because of the news and the upcoming, announcement to come. But the biggest thing that I think will come from this is the ability to invest in Auston Matthews. And we've talked about it so many times how it's such a smart investment in our area. You know, Plays for one of the biggest markets in the NHL. He's a goal scorer. Everything just works out. And even now, to be the captain of one of the biggest markets in the NHL, the biggest market in the NHL, it's going to kind of solidify that ability to invest in Matthews and that confidence when you are able to put, your hardworking money into a player and invest in all different types of cards, the young guns, the future watch, even patches, non-rookies, all kinds of things.
So I was taking a look to see where his market is at right now. And, it's in a decent spot. It's obviously not anywhere near where it was at the height this year, where you saw PSA 10 values going as high as $1,800. We saw it reach. And if you were smart, you sold at that point. But right now, so this is where things are at. PSA 10, you're looking at about $1,100. You can get them for about 1,000 if you're paying cash, and if the price is right, you could get them for about $1,000. However, as you mentioned, the last 24 hours, I did see a sale after the announcement of 1,496, so almost $1,500. So it looks like there was one nice little bump up in a sale for Auston Matthews and his Young Guns PSA 10s. Someone looking to capitalize, thinking, okay, if he's the captain, if this team wins and he's got the C on his chest, I mean, it might mean a little bit more. His PSA 9 value saw another sale go a little bit higher than usual. The last one at $699.96. So basically $700 when it was hovering about, 625 throughout all summer. So a little bit of a bump up in the PSA 9s and even the raw. I'm seeing a big raw sale in the last 24 hours go from, the $500 range up to about $650. I saw a last raw sale on 130 points. So looks like the last 24 hours with this news, we did see a little bit of a bump up in his sales. But what I think this probably does is maybe it raises the ceilings a little bit higher. Like now, maybe you won't be able to get that PSA 10 Young Gun for 1,000. Maybe now that ceiling is going to, or that floor, sorry, not ceiling, the floor will raise to about 1,100 now that he's got that C on his chest. And it just means a little bit more for Maple Leaf fans to have themselves and Auston Matthews Young Guns in their collection. Maybe it creates a little bit more of a supply now that he's or a demand now that he's the captain.
No, it's a tough card to negotiate too. You've been at shows and it's almost like no one wants to drop under $1,000 for a Matthews, right? Like when's
Why
the
would
last
you?
time?
Why would you?
And there's
I'm
no
not
reason
selling you under that.
I wouldn't either. I mean, I don't think I've ever sold. I think I sold one actually for like 990 to a guy. We had a couple good deals in the past. And I was like, okay, I'll hook it up. But I mean, going forward, like you said, this is definitely going to raise the floor. I don't see any Auston Matthews Young Guns PSA 10 selling for less than $1,000 in any, anytime soon. So for at least the next 6 months, if you can keep your eye on any Matthews PSA 10s for under 1,000, like if you could snipe them for 750, 725, maybe if you could find a really good deal at a show, get into it for a trade. I feel like that $1,000 floor is always going to be there. And, this isn't financial advice. This is just my personal thinking moving forward. And I've always been high on Matthews and his price and everything that surrounds his market. But that $1,000 floor, I think this is really going to solidify it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason really for that. I mean, I guess he would have to really have a tough season this upcoming year, like if that were to happen. But outside of, I guess, like the on ice struggles of him dropping from 69 back into like, I don't know, 40 some odd goals, that probably would impact the market a little bit, but it's not going to impact it greatly. But I do think that now you'll be hard to find anything under $1,000. I think 1,100 is going to be kind of the ask at this point when it comes to an Auston Matthews PSA 10 Young Guns Future Watch auto. Last Ross sale was around $2,600. PSA 10 went for about $7,500. So we'll see if some of the bigger cards can see a bit of a bump too with this news, something to track over the next couple of days. There's a couple more things that happened in the NHL that kind of caught my eye that could have some hobby relevancy that I think we could talk about. So offer sheets are something we don't see happen in the NHL, but it's definitely something that's been legal and something that a lot of fans clamor for each and every year, but never get. And finally, we see a GM with stones. Not Jim Rutherford. Wow, why am I blanking? The St. Louis Blues GM. Google it for me while I talk about this for a second.
Doug Armstrong.
Doug Armstrong. Thank you. Dougie Armstrong, St. Louis Blues general manager. He's got stones. He offered she did not one, but two players on the same team. He offered sheeted Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. So Broberg, he gave him an offer sheet in the range of $4.5 million for 2 years. Dylan Holloway, $2.29 million for 2 years. The compensation for Broberg would be a second-round pick, and the compensation for Holloway would be a third-round pick. Funny enough, too, I don't know if you saw this morning, there was a trade, a little minor deal, just of draft picks. St. Louis had to reacquire their third-round draft pick for the upcoming draft in order to make this decision. So they kind of sent signals out earlier today that they were going to be making another move stemming off of that trade, and they're able to do it. I love this from a hockey chaos perspective. As a hockey fan, I've been asking for teams to do this. Makes no sense why other teams don't take advantage. I mean, if you can pry Dylan Holloway for a third-round pick, that's a huge move for the St. Louis Blues. But that would not be a great move from a Dylan Holloway investor. That's the one thing, right? So that's where it's like your hockey fandom and your hockey investor hat are kind of on two separate entities when it comes to these types of situations. Because in my opinion, Dylan Holloway as an Edmonton Oiler, a far more investable player than Dylan Holloway as a St. Louis Blues.
Yeah. I mean, it's like any player that plays with McDavid, sorry.
Yeah.
They're, you can invest in them. You look at Arvidsson now, you look at Savoy now, that bump in price just 2-3 weeks ago, we had that conversation. And even for Holloway, a third-round pick is a sweet deal. The biggest thing,
the first rounder like 3 years ago.
Oh, man, the biggest thing that stood out to me, though, was the timing of this. Do you know what happened last night? Or I guess it was 2 nights ago with a particular player on the Edmonton Oilers wedding?
What happened at the wedding? I didn't hear at the wedding. No,
I'm saying, do you think this was like timed in a way? Okay, maybe they're thrown off the game. Maybe management, had a little bit too much fun at the night before at the wedding.
So explain for those who didn't, who don't know what you're talking about. The wedding. Connor McDavid got married.
So Connor McDavid got married.
The royal wedding of Edmonton.
Correct. The royal NHL wedding just occurred. And I have a little bit of a, I feel like an idea that Doug Armstrong said to himself and his staff, maybe we could catch these guys a little bit off guard, coming into work a little groggy, coming into work a little slow. Maybe their decisions aren't ready to go. Who knows? I mean, with money this big and decisions this big, it could be a calculated decision just like that. And it is the middle of the summer. I mean, there is not much going on right now. We're still about, like you said, 6 to 7 weeks, I believe, away from the off season. But this is a great move for the Blues. They really need to make a splash like this. And from a hobby perspective, I mean, it's not great. Broberg isn't really collectible. Dylan Holloway does have that potential to be collectible if he does turn into a 25, 30 goal scorer on a line with McDavid. He wasn't able to do that. That was kind of the expectation 2 seasons ago when he was first starting out with them. But if he moves to the Blues, it might be a tough look for his cards from a hobby's perspective. But like you said, for hockey chaos, this is sweet.
It goes in the toilet. the values go straight into the toilet. Like right
Yeah.
now, so Dylan Holloway, if you want to go and buy his young guns right now, they're selling raw for about $10 to $15. And in PSA 10, they're going for 120 in the 120 range for a PSA 10, only a pop 93. So super low pop count too for Dylan Holloway, just a 25% gem rate also. So that he's part of, was that the 2022-23 series 2, I want to say series 1 or 2 for Dylan Holloway, last year's Young Guns class. But that number probably shrinks in half if this actually goes through and he ends up on the St. Louis Blues. Because I mean, it's what drives the hobby. What do we always say about this? What drives the hobby?
Oh, the hype,
Hype.
buddy.
And the hype around Dylan Holloway, you mentioned it, was the possibility of him eventually tagging up with Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. If that is no longer in the picture, he is a far less attractive player when it comes to, you know, his collectability and his investability. Because now all of a sudden he goes out there and it's like, okay, it's not a great market in St. Louis. I mean, they've got great players in St. Louis that don't fetch squat. Like a Robert Thomas PSA 10 rookie card is like $80.
I was gonna say.
Jordan Kyrou's in the same position. It's like an $80 PSA 10. These are point per game players. Like these are good young hockey players that should be more, but it's just not a market that really works for it. So Dylan Holloway is going to, in my opinion, go below those guys. And all of a sudden you're looking at like a $50-$60 PSA 10. So I'm not sure what they're gonna do. At 2.29, they might be able to match it, the Edmonton Oilers. They could match that one and retain Dylan Holloway and still believe that he could be, a middle six, a top six player for them down the stretch. And that's what they anticipated. Hopefully he can turn out to be that. He did score 5 goals in the playoffs, started to come on the later in the playoffs it went. So I know they like him a lot as a player, and he is still super young. He's only like 22 years old. So at 2.3 million, it's possible that they could certainly still end up bringing back Dylan Holloway. But Philip Broberg at 4.5 million, I'm not sure the Edmonton Oilers really see that as a possibility to try and fit that into their already super tight cap situation. And he's a guy that had a little bit of a resurgence in the playoffs, right? He came through and played the final 10 playoff games, played really well, thrusted into a top 4 position. It's like, okay, maybe Broberg is like that guy. Maybe he is something here. But ultimately, he's still only a $5 young gun raw. You can get his PSA 10 for about $70. It's a pop 181, 60% gem rate. If he goes to St. Louis, no, nothing. Absolutely zero hobby relevancy, zero hobby love. You'll be finding him in the $2 bins. You could probably pick up his PSA 10 at that point for like 30, $40, depending on what he does once he gets to St. Louis. Still a super young guy, but yeah, from a hobby perspective, if you are a owner of Dylan Holloway, like if you're a Dylan Holloway PC guy, man, are you ever hoping and praying that the Edmonton Oilers match that offer sheet and retain his rights, because those prices are going to take an absolute cliff dive if he ends up in St. Louis.
It's kind of a pretty handsome offer, don't you think? Like for a 22-year-old Dylan Holloway that really hasn't, got to the expectations that people have hoped for. He's been above average. He's been above average in a sense that he did perform well in the playoffs, but I think they have a little bit of a higher, ceiling for him. He hasn't been able to show that just yet. He was a good player, don't get me wrong, through their playoff run, but I feel like St. Louis is kind of giving them an offer or a number for Holloway that is, it's a little bit aggressive. I don't think that Edmonton's ready to match that. Will they
That's what
match?
you got to do. That's what you got to. That's the whole. If you're going to make an offer sheet, what's the point if you're not going to make it aggressive? You got to make it difficult for the team to say yes ultimately. And they took it right up to the point where there's right on the line from a third to a second round pick. So they gave just enough where it only had to be a third rounder as compensation. And let's say that they the Oilers decide, no, we're not going to give him up for a third rounder. We'll figure out the cap situation. All right, cool. They sign him at 2.3, whatever the number is. And all of a sudden, I mean, they didn't plan for that. Or even Philip Broberg got $4.5 million. They didn't plan for that.
Yeah.
That completely screws their cap situation. And they're going to have to figure out something between now and the start of the season. And you're going to put them in a bind. So it's really it's a double whammy if you're the Blues, right? Like, okay, best case scenario, you get these players. Worst case scenario, you don't, but you screwed over the Edmonton Oilers in their cap structure for the next couple of years. So it really is kind of a win-win. And I don't understand why teams don't do this more often. Like, it's part of the CBA. It's totally legal, and teams have never ever done this. We saw it once with Kotkaniemi a couple of years back, and that was in retaliation to the Sebastian Aho one, and that just absolutely blew up in the face of the Carolina Hurricanes. But outside of that, we really haven't seen a lot of them, and we get two in one day, and it's the same team going after two players on the same organization. It's wild stuff. Wild stuff, Anthony. Doug Armstrong woke up and chose violence today in St. Louis.
Hey, I maybe he was mad he didn't get an invite to the wedding. Maybe that's what it is. He probably wanted to be invited to the wedding. We don't know, but it's a good move for them. It's definitely a good move for them. They need a solid defenseman like Broberg, and definitely adding a Dylan Holloway, a young forward, young right winger that has that spark to him, and quite frankly, has already been on that playoff run just last year. Could turn into a sweet, double whammy, like you said, for the Blues, acquiring and also, sticking it to the Oilers in a little bit.
Yeah. So the Oilers will have a week to decide if they want to match the contract offers and retain Holloway and Broberg, or if they're going to just take the compensation instead. It would be a second-round pick for Broberg or a third-round pick for Dylan Holloway. My expectation is they retain Holloway and let Broberg go and pick up the second rounder. That's what I believe will end up happening at the end of the day. And as someone who owns 5 or 6 Dylan Holloway Young Guns, I am hoping that's what happens, because he was someone I wasn't like heavily investing in him this summer, but I was picking him up if I saw him in like the $5 to $8 range. I thought those were good prices to pick him up at. So I think I've got like 6 or 7 now. And I don't want those to completely tank in the next week. So
what's like the ruling too for like players? Like, imagine a guy like Holloway wakes up this morning, he's headed to like a workout, get food, whatever it is, and he sees that he might turn into a St. Louis Blue. Like,
well, he's got to accept the contract first and foremost,
right?
So it's not just like they're gonna pay you this much, and like you have to accept the contract, and then Edmonton has a chance to match it. So he would have known this was coming. So like his representation, they would have had to sign a contract and everything. So he's willing to go to St. Louis for that money. He's already that's what that means when you submit an offer sheet and it gets accepted by the player. Yeah, so they're in accordance. Like, and this is a way for the player too, like to just get a contract dealt with, so they don't have to sit there all off season and all summer. It's like, I've been sitting here. It's now mid-August. I still haven't had a contract. We've been sitting doing nothing for 6 weeks. What's going on? A team finally comes over and they're like, "Hey, we'll pay you $2.5 million bucks, or Broberg will pay you $4.5 million. All right, let's go. Worst case scenario, maybe Edmonton matches. If not, well, I got some guaranteed money elsewhere, and on we go." So it's a win. It's always a win for the players, I believe, and it's the teams that kind of get screwed over in these scenarios. But yeah, Holloway didn't wake up this morning and was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" He's well aware of what had happened. He had to okay the contract before it got submitted.
And I mean, another player too, just recently, a little bit of news coming out of Pittsburgh/Nashville. Another guy that probably looked at his phone, got a call, and said, "Look, you're headed to go playing with Sidney Crosby." Cody Glass gets traded to Pittsburgh, and I know you're not, sold on Cody Glass. We've had this conversation before, talking
Cody Glass. When I say that,
we were talking like what's that, like 4 weeks ago? We were talking about Cody Glass, him being on the power play. Was it you we were talking at a show? Because me personally, I've always been a Cody Glass guy. I think we were having the conversation. He's injury prone. He really hasn't led a team through that first. Was that you or no?
Yeah, actually, well, I probably did say all of that, but again, circumstances change. I like him a lot better in Pittsburgh than I do in Nashville.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
at this point, if he's still, a dollar bin find, and I found many Cody Glasses in a dollar bin, $1, $2, $3. Now that's a buy. For a while, it was like there's not much to add to it. Now it's a buy. Or if you got a Cody Glass inscribed Future Watch auto, that's a buy. Like that's a buy, and that's a card that for sure I think is has much better opportunity now that he's with the Pittsburgh Penguins than he did when he was, in and out of the lineup in Nashville. Now there's a spot for him in Pittsburgh, maybe play on the power play, get an opportunity. It's good. He's a big body. I think he's an NHL player for sure. Lit it up in the American League a couple of years ago. I still like him. 2019-20 Series 1 Young Guns. Yeah, he's somebody where if you find him in those dollar bins, $2 bins, those valuable bins, he's now worth picking up in Pittsburgh.
Oh, for sure. For sure, man. I might be sold on him a little bit too much because I first found out about him. I think it was NHL 20 when I was playing, and I packed him for one of the Team of the Week packs. He was unreal, and that's where I really started to watch him. And then even now that I collect hockey cards, I started getting into it more and more. And even for him not to have the craziest, highest value compared to some of these other young prospects, I think he's still a good player. And like you mentioned too, his value could increase seeing a change to, move to Pittsburgh where he wasn't really able to find a good sense of himself in the lineup in Nashville. And now, there's not as much flash on you, not as many lights. You're more of a third, fourth liner going into Pittsburgh. You get that opportunity to learn under Sidney Crosby. You kind of have a couple years under your belt and maybe coming off, that injury that he had last year, which he was kind of battling for most of the season. I think he only played around 30 games, I believe, last year. He was pretty much out for most of the season. So I feel like this is a pretty big trade for Pittsburgh. And I feel like Kyle Dubas made, a pretty good decision to send over Cody Glass to his Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I like the move, and I think it's not a massive positive, but it's definitely more positive than negative for Cody Glass hobby enthusiasts such as one Anthony Santini. So that's a positive for you and your collection you have there. All right, let's move on to hobby news. Not a terrible or a big amount of like specific hockey hobby news. I did get an email from Upper Deck though. I believe they announced a couple new things that are coming out pretty soon in terms of let me just pull up the email here so you know exactly the hobby release calendar. So they've announced Credentials is going to be coming out on August 21st. And I'm a big Credentials guy. Love me my Credentials. It's a great product to get like rookie autos, on card rookie autos to short printed stuff. Now there's a lot of autographs in the product, I will say. So it's like, short printed, but it's like there's autos out of 1, out of 2, out of 3, out of 5, out of 8, out of 10, out of 20, out of 35, out of 28.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. And maybe next week we'll go through a bit of the checklist. But in terms of for PC, cheap stuff and looks sick. So Credentials is something I'm excited for. That comes out on August 21st. And our first 24-25 product has been announced. 24-25 MVP coming out on August 28th. So we'll get MVP coming out. I still don't see SP Authentic in this email. So I don't know. Maybe it's been pushed back again. Because it should have been in this email because it was August 30th or 29th you thought you saw last week?
It was the August 30th is the expected release, but the email that you forwarded to me too, I think I had it all the way to November, right? Like all those dates go all the way to
September. It's got till September.
Oh,
okay. So yeah, September 11th they have it until. So it could be pushed back a couple of weeks. SP Authentic possibly. NHL Ice is coming up before it though, so they got 23-24 NHL Ice coming out September 5th. So it'll be right after Labor Day weekend. So still a bunch of products to still come, which is wild. That means that we're not even close to the end of like Bedard mania when it comes to the 23-24. Speaking of Bedard mania, for fun, I was taking a look at what the pop count is for Connor Bedard. What do you think it's at?
So I believe we were at last time was this for PSA 10s, right? Or just in
PSA,
general?
yeah, PSA 10 pop count for Connor Bedard.
So I think we were at like 2,000 last time we talked, right?
No, we were into the 4,000s.
No, was it? Man,
Yeah.
it's just keeps going up and up. I mean, now it's got to be at least 5,500 then, at least.
Not quite 5,500. That'd be absurd because the number one is only like 50 something
No,
100.
is it? What, Kaprizov?
Jack Hughes is up to I'll pull it up on
Pull it up again
Gemini
because
really quickly.
it feels like these guys are battling for the top spot between Kaprizov, Jack Hughes, and even now Bedard PSA 10s coming in.
Well, I know Jack Hughes and Kaprizov for sure. And that is the top three, and it's Jack Hughes first, then Kaprizov, and then you're sitting at Connor Bedard after that. For hockey, let's click on hockey, get this database up in here. So definitely for hockey, that is what we're seeing. But he's not quite up to 5,000. Where is he at? Why can't I pull this up? Connor Bedard, 4,976 PSA 10s. 4,976 PSA 10s. So
That's crazy.
just shy of 5,000 PSA 10 Young Guns for Connor Bedard. Gem rate of 46%. Yeah. So that'll be at 5K probably in the next
Fairly soon.
week or two, I would imagine. Like it's not going to be too long before we have it here. Like it's going to be at 5,000. And I said this months ago that I believe that by puck drop it will be the highest graded PSA 10 populated card in hockey history. Because at this point I think it's only Jack Hughes, 2019.
Yep. 20,
Yeah,
19, 20.
Yeah, 1920. Yeah, he's at 5,392, and Kirill Kaprizov is at. It's not going to work for me now, are you? Hang on. How's that not going to work? What do you mean, 2021? You're not going to give me any 2021s?
Uh-oh.
5,339. So they're both at like 5,300. They're right in the same ballpark. So we need about 400 more Bedard Young Guns to surpass Kaprizov and Jack Hughes. And it's only been what? What are we on today? The 13th? It came out on the 13th. So we're looking at March to April, April to May, May to June, June to July, July to August 13th. 5-6 months.
5 months.
And we've almost surpassed cards that came out in 2019, 2020. Any other card actually in existence. It's high pop counts. Very, very high pop counts.
That's unreal, man. I think the biggest thing too that kind of drives it is Bedard's still relatively, and I mean, take this with a grain of salt, but he's still affordable in a sense for his ceiling and what he's able to do. I mean, when you compare him to, Crosby, Ovi, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, Matthews, like all these great players in the NHL that he will one day, I assume, be in that conversation with. $300 to $400 for a raw Young Guns is pretty affordable considering the prices of these other players. I'm not saying he's cheap. I'm not saying $300 is nothing, but compared to what you're paying for other stars, buying him.
I think there's only 3 guys who are more than that for a raw Young Gun. That's it.
Well, if you compare him to, so let's say Matthews is at least 550 to 6.
That's it. Crosby. It's Matthews, McDavid, and Ovechkin. And Crosby. Yeah, 4 guys.
4. And McKinnon. McKinnon's like 400. Is he not for a raw?
No chance. No shot. No shot. He might be in the 300 range. I bet they're around the same price. I'll look on Card Ladder.
Hey, but if you're going to put him in that conversation, you would expect that he would be in that, $6,000 to $1,000 range. Like those are the conversations that Bedard's name is being found in. Like when you go to shows, people say, oh, he'll be, better than Crosby, better than Ovi, better than McDavid, better than Matthews, but he's
Do
still
you
the
want to
cheapest out of all four.
do you want to know what his last PSA 10 sale was for?
725.
Nathan McKinnon.
725.
Close. 698.
Okay.
So about $700 for his PSA 10, which is only pop 1600,
Fair.
1650.
Fair.
So 700 for, so if you're spending, I don't know, 350 on so what would it be raw? Hold on, let me see what raw sales are. So that's PSA 10 raw. I would imagine you're not even going to give me raw sales, really? Oh my goodness. Great podcasting here. 294, 290. So about $290 for a raw. So
Okay.
it's cheaper. McKinnon's cheaper than Bedard.
Same range though. Same range. But I know
Talking
you
about the
get
reigning MVP. This guy's the reigning MVP of the league.
Hey, and I don't make the rules here.
Connor Bedard.
I don't make the prices.
Wild.
I don't make the prices, but considering if we're gonna put them in the conversation, okay, you go to shows, people are talking about who's gonna be the best in the game. We're talking Crosby, Ovi, Matthews, McDavid, and is that everyone? And Bedard.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our five. Bedard's still the cheapest out of all four others. So from a hobby perspective, I feel like most people are bound to, pick up Bedard Young Guns if you're going to eventually put him in that conversation. So as of right now, it feels cheap, but we've had this conversation a couple times now. Bedard's prices are really, really hard to, swallow. Considering
we are on opposite ends of that. Like, I would never, ever in a million years use the word cheap when I refer to Connor Bedard card prices.
If you're gonna
but like Connor Bedard, a PSA 10 for Connor Bedard sells for more than a PSA 10 Auston Matthews. Matthews is a 70 goal scorer. He's won the MVP. He's got 3 Rocket Richards. How is he cheaper than a Connor Bedard? You're gonna say Bedard's cheap? What does Bedard have to do to be more than Matthews in Toronto? Now the captain.
In comparison to these people in the same, tax bracket that people are putting him in, he's definitely the cheapest. Obviously, he has a long road to come. He still has like 5 years to still even being close to the worst player out of those four. But for the conversations he's being put in and what people are holding him to, I think, people were saying, okay, $300. I don't mind spending $300 when the next level is spending $550, $600 for a Matthews Young Guns. That's my battle.
Sure. I just at that point, I guess you're just by the Matthews 10s.
Yeah,
makes more sense from an investment standpoint, I suppose. But yeah, it's wild where that's come to. I do want to bring something up though, and Bedard will probably pop back up in this conversation in a second from now. But I saw something on going kind of viral on the sports card world, let's say, like within Instagram and on Twitter and everywhere else that I follow my sports cards news. So obviously, Team USA won the basketball Olympic gold medal, and this comes out from Topps after they win the gold medal. They are going to be releasing this card. So, are you familiar with Topps Now and that Topps Now program that they do?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No, but I have seen this card before just this past weekend, and dude, it's unreal. Even like everything you get out of it too, it's just unreal.
So what they do, or what this is, so it's for those who are listening, it's a Topps Now 1-of-1 triple autograph of Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant, all for playing in their USA jerseys for Team USA, and it's the first time that all three of them have ever been on a card together. And it's the first time that Steph and LeBron have ever been autoed together. So I think they had the here. First time that LeBron has a Topps autograph. It's the first time that LeBron and Curry autos on the same card, and the first time that all three of them are on the same card. And it's an on-card autograph. So the way that it's going to work is essentially you can buy a non-autograph version of this card. It's a Topps Now. It's what they do is basically anything cool that happens, whether it's like a home run from a certain player, or any memorable moment, realistically, you could buy a snapshot of that card from Topps. And some of them are numbered, right? You'll get some that are at a 199, out of 500. This one is a 1 of 1, and it's triple autograph. So one lucky person who orders the card from Topps now, the base card, is going to also get this autograph included with it. Steph Curry, Durant, LeBron James. And there's already been a $100,000 bounty placed on it from Jeff Wilson from Sports Card Investor.
Wow.
Insane card. Insane card.
Even to have LeBron too signing for another company, because I think he only had that deal with Upper Deck where he only signs for Upper Deck. So this is like surreal, especially to have Curry and LeBron the past 10 years. They've had together battling it out, and KD. It's almost like three of the best players in the past 10 years, all on one card, all in their USA uniform. And you have the opportunity of not even, paying such a crazy price for boxes. All you have to do is buy a Topps Now card, which I don't believe exceeds more than $100. I think it was around
like 20 bucks. No, it's like 20 bucks, $20 US. You buy the card because you're just getting the regular base card. There's going to be like tens of thousands of them printed. Like it's just a regular base card. It's similar to what they did with Project 2020, where you just place an order and then you get that card, and everyone's guaranteed. And however many people order it is how much the print run is going to be and how much are created. And then there's going to be select ones that are just going to be numbered to 99, 199, 299. There'll be short prints, and this is the 1 of 1, and it's going to be amazing for someone to get. Now, my question to you is, Anthony, what would the hockey card equivalent be for this card?
I mean, okay. So 2 players that have battled it out. It's got to be Crosby and Ovi. They have to be a part of this card. And then almost like that third fiddle, I'd say maybe, I guess you could put McDavid in there. That would be that would be an unreal card. I mean, that's on a next level though. I feel like something like that would almost be like having Jordan, Magic Johnson, and LeBron James. Like that's another tier. I feel like Ovi, Crosby, and maybe like
For
a Pavel
me,
Datsyuk, maybe I'll say
Datsyuk.
Like talented guy that has trophies.
So for me, I think a great one would be Crosby, McDavid, Bedard. Like that to me is that's 101 for me. And it's like you get the 4 nations coming up next year, or possibly the playoffs. I don't know. But let's say like Upper Deck did something very similar where you could order this card and there's one lucky winner, ends up with the 1 of 1. And it's a Crosby, McDavid, Bedard on card auto 1 of 1 from Upper Deck, all wearing like their Team Canada gear or something. That would be sick. That would probably be the equivalent to the card.
Man, that would be nuts. Like that just gives me the perfect snapshot of like what hockey card collecting is, like a true 1 of 1. You won't see a card like this around, and I feel like there eventually will be a card like that. That Crosby, McDavid, Bedard combo. Maybe could they play all on the same team next year? We'll see. But that would be unreal. I mean, I think I would personally buy a couple cards just to even get a chance if there was a little opportunity similar to this one, because that's surreal.
All right, let's get to pickups from the week. Did you make any pickups this week, Anth?
Nothing yet. Just waiting on those foodies coming in the mail. Nothing crazy. Sucks, but I woke up Sunday morning ready for that show that we chatted about in Mississauga. Probably the single worst thing that can happen to you is waking up on a Sunday ready for the show, clothes ready to go, all packed up, and then you realize that it was canceled / moved to another date.
Okay, but you realized ahead of time you didn't get, because imagine how many people showed up, and I feel so bad because I meant to text you. I was told a day before or 2 days before, because I messaged him. I wanted to get a table, and he messaged me back saying, "Oh, I've been trying to get the word out. It's actually canceled, or it's not canceled, but it was never supposed to be that day. Apparently, it was just a screw up on the calendar, and it was always supposed to be in September. So it was just a total screw up on, I don't know, whoever posted it on like that website that we all have with the Google Calendar of all
Yeah.
the shows in the GTA. It wasn't ever supposed to be that date, but yeah, I meant
That
to
happened.
text you, but my bad, brother. My
Oh,
bad.
it's all right. I kind of like. I mean, it happens. I totally get it. It's all good. But I was like, we had me, Eric, and Murray. We had like our plan in place. We were like gonna grab coffee, grab breakfast, and then head to the show, and
Yeah, I
then
planned on it too.
come
Yeah.
back to my house, play hockey. We had our hockey game at night, so we were gonna have that in the plan too. And then worst feeling ever, waking up, everything all packed, ready to go, lunch is ready to go, and then yeah, the show's canceled. But I totally get it. You know what happens? Things happen. I
Ah,
gotta
it's
do
all
a little
good.
bit more research next time.
You got a free Sunday to yourself to do
Yep.
whatever you wanted to do. It was a nice day, at least.
Hey, I golfed. You already
Nice
know I
day.
like golf.
There you go. Exactly. I had a couple pickups. I swung into Breaker's Choice, a hobby shop. My boys, Nick and George, good dudes who run that shop down there. And well, I made a purchase first, and then I was just there. Honestly, I was there for like 3 hours, just yucking it up with these dudes. And eventually we ended up also making a big trade as well. So I'll show the cards that I picked up. So this was the first purchase that I made.
Oh,
It is Doug Gilmour exquisite autograph. Auto numbered to 25. So nice on card Dougie Gilmour exquisite auto to 25. So this was a nice card that I just, it's Doug Gilmour. We're in Toronto. If I could pick up a nice on card Dougie Gilmour from out of the cup at that for a good price, I'm gonna do it. So I was able to get a good deal on it, and I made that pickup. And then the monster trade came down afterwards, real late at night. It was probably around midnight, like 11 p.m., like midnight when we made this trade. But this was a monster. I don't know if you can see all of
ooh,
the cards involved here. There's some cash involved as well, but I gave up this side, which is it was an Alexander Barkov stature on card auto number to 10. I gave up a Wayne Gretzky auto 9/9 dual patch dual patch autograph. This one sucked to give up. This is really what he was after, and then everything else kind of was just part of the deal. And an exquisite materials Patrick Waugh number to 15 piece of his blocker. I think it's the inside of the blocker here. And then my Alex Ovechkin raw Young Guns I also gave up as part of the package. So I gave up some significant cards. Those are some big boys that
ooh.
I was passing along to my boy Nick over there. But I picked up a jersey auto from Dominion for Sidney Crosby. I picked up a Carey Price Cup quad patch, not RPA, but patch auto out of the cup, number to 35 for Carey Price in his final season, 21-22. It's his final year, so could have been one of the final autographs that one of the final jerseys possibly that he played in, potentially. So, and then I got a bunch of cash on top to make the money work, as they say, to even out the trade. So I got these two and some cash on top for all four of these going out to my boy Nick at Breaker's Choice. So I think these two will probably be in his showcase. That one he says he's tossing in the vault, little piece. I think he had a guy who was looking for an Ovechkin. But if you're interested in these, Breaker's Choice, they should have them chilling in the case. And these are chilling in my collection. I always love picking up Sidney Crosby and Carey Price autos. Those are like anytime you can pick them up. That's what I always say.
It's like having two legends, just collectible. Pick them up when you can. Pick
Yeah.
up autos, and I mean both are on card too. I believe.
Yep.
The Carey Price was the cup, and then even Panini Dominion. You know me with Panini Dominion. I love Dominion. We've talked about it so many times. Nice
Yeah.
auto, nice
Love
patch.
Dominion.
Like for
It's a
years.
clean auto too.
Oh yeah,
Super clean auto.
yeah,
It's a great card. It's not numbered, but I believe Crosby was one of the SSP like group A kind of players.
yeah.
So I think it's an SSP card. I couldn't even find it like in a checklist, to be honest with you. It was tough to find. I can't find a comp. But anyway, It's a Crosby auto at a Dominion. And yeah, I think it's pretty short print. Couldn't find it anywhere. So I was happy with the deal. He was happy with the deal. And yeah, so those were the pickups that I made over the weekend. It was a lot of
Love
fun.
it.
That was a good hard trade. That was like a 30-minute negotiation to get to that point with adding cards, taking out cards, doing, cash prices, cash and trade. It was a pretty significant trade. I will say that. But it was a lot of fun.
You got some nice stuff. Hey, it was a big deal. It took a lot of time, but I know you had that Gretzky for a while too. You really liked that thing. Like I remember you weren't
Yeah,
really
man.
looking to move off it anytime soon. So I was pretty surprised when you sent me that photo.
I wasn't. Even when I brought it up to him, I was showing him a picture of the card. He's like, "I need that. Bring it to me, and I'm gonna buy it off you." And it turned into that big deal. It started with the Gretzky, and it turned into all that.
Nice.
I had a chance to trade up into a bigger Crosby patch auto. I
You're
passed
like,
on it. I wanted a bit more cash. Yeah, I wanted a bit more cash in the deal instead of trading up. But yeah, so those were the pickups that I made this past week. We'll see what we do next week when we go through our pickups. But that'll do it. Actually, really quickly, big show weekend. I didn't realize. I looked at the calendar. Couple of shows going on. You got Fanatics Fest in New York City. That's going to be fun. Maybe we could see if we can get someone who's going to be down there to join the show next week to see how it went for Fanatics Fest. I know Auston Matthews is going to be signing. He
oh
doesn't
really?
sign. Yeah, he doesn't
Yeah.
sign anywhere. So the fact that they got him to go and sign is pretty big. They got a lot of massive guys from like football, baseball, basketball. That's gonna be a big show. And then Saturday and Sunday, a couple of shows in the GTA, the Evolution show in Aurora at the Legion branch, and then Copetown show in Dundas on Sunday. I Saturday will not be there. I've got a stag and doe, and Sunday depends how hungover I am after the stag. We'll see. Possibly might make an appearance at the Copetown show, but that'll be a TBD based on my status from Saturday evening shenanigans. But you got anything plan on going to either of these two?
I've decided to maybe go to Evolution because I might be in Aurora golfing early in the morning. So I haven't decided just yet if it's gonna align with my schedule, but we'll see what happens because if I do, I'm obviously looking to buy the usuals, the Young Guns, the Future Watches, and I haven't been to a show in like over a month, it feels like. Like the last one I went to was that one with me and you. So I'm definitely fired up for the next one and hopefully at least one of these for sure.
Was that the Aurora show or the Richmond Hill show?
The Richmond Hill Markham was the
Yeah.
last one. It was like over a month ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get out there, brother. Got to
I
get
know,
out
man.
there. It's all right. Hockey season will be here and we'll get back into the swing of things. And
Yep.
we'll be hitting shows each week. Not too
Yep.
long before we know it. It'll be time for Expo.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, good stuff. Fun show today. Fun, lots of interesting, fun topics that we got to touch on too. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe right here on YouTube, and you can also listen to us on the go. We are now live on Spotify as well, so you can subscribe to us on Spotify for you on the go listeners. You can listen to us in the car, on your run, while you're walking the dog, wherever you listen to your Spotify podcast. We'll be back next Wednesday with another edition of the Hockey Card Haven podcast.